Mr. Green.
Yeah, thank you, that's fine.
Mr. Koopser.
Here.
Ms. Mossop.
Present.
Dr. Pomponio.
Here.
Mr. Craig.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission statement is Learning for Life, and the vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Takes us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have any revisions for the agenda? I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. And citizens' comments. Do we have anybody who would like to speak tonight? No? Okay. We don't have any presentations tonight, and so we are right away on to student government representatives. We have the Cyber Club, Luke Bunge.
So I'll also be the button clicker for tonight. My name is Luke Bunge. I'm a tech in the Southgate Technology Department here in Southgate. I'm also the club advisor for Cyber Club. It's a newly started club, and the reason we started this club was because I saw a lack of technology classes within the high school. I think technology and IT in general is a very important trade, and it's a booming industry. So we started to gather students for the Merit Cyber Challenge, which is a week-long challenge based on various questions they have to answer each day. After the challenge, we had the students initiate the club process. It got approved, and then we started training towards Cyber Patriot, which is a year-long national competition for cyber. Going through this process, we applied for and was awarded a state grant. We used that grant to buy materials and computers, which we use to further our training. We held a school-wide website building competition, and then as we were going through the training, we placed second in the state for our division in Cyber Patriot. In the state, there's 20 other teams in our division. We were placed second. Woohoo! The students will talk a little more into detail. I just wanted to kind of a high-level overview of what our club was about. So the first up is Timothy talking about systems.
Hi, I'm Timothy, a freshman at Anderson High School. I'm in Cyber Club, and a few things we focus on are system administration, which consists of computer building, operating systems, and networking. Now, what we do in computer building, we tear apart computers, we learn the hardware, and we build it back up. Now, the operating systems we use are Windows 10 and Ubuntu, which is a version of Linux. And we also practice networking. We plug in computers together, and we see what happens. And we see how they talk to each other. Now I'm going to pass this on to Hess, who will talk about programming.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm a junior at Southgate Anderson. I'm in Cyber Club. It's one of my most favorite clubs. I'm part of only 2 programs, but I gotta say, I appreciate you guys for letting us speak here today and then starting it up to begin with. What we do is that we joined an international program called Hack Club, which provides us with resources and stuff and lets us communicate together to learn coding over time. And on top of that, with the grant that we got what's called Raspberry Pis, which lets us design a lot of different things from face recognition to just homemade little old-fashioned arcade-style stuff, just so that way we get a little bit of an understanding of coding and what else. Well, Hack Club, one of the things that provided us with this, provided us with a free like website type thing called Cloud9, which allows us to save all of our programs and everything else to one central file. So that way we can, as a group, share all of our files together. Then, while we did that, like Luke talked about earlier, we had a school-wide website building competition where a good amount of people participated in it. And up there is the website that was won. I believe it was Terry Eversole who won it. He won a Raspberry Pi from building this.
What is a Raspberry Pi that he won? Is it a?
It's being passed
small-
around right now.
I'm magical. Ask and you shall receive.
Perfect timing.
So a Raspberry Pi is just a small computer, and with the small computer, it's $35 just for basically a motherboard that you can plug USBs in, Ethernet, HDMI cord, and what we can do with this small computer is put various projects on it, and like what he said, just facial recognition,
Yeah.
RetroPie gaming, and various other projects. An example of this is on the slide, where you can make an arcade all powered by one Raspberry Pi. And those are the types of projects that we're pushing for and what kids want to build for students.
Up next is Caitlin. Talk about the cybersecurity.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Bowen, and I'm in the 12th grade at Anderson High School. I'm going to talk about the cybersecurity aspect of our club. So there are 3 types of hacking. There's white, black, and gray hat. And white hat is what is referred to as an ethical hacker, and that's what we strive to be, because we don't want to damage anything at the school. So the second picture there on the left is us participating in the Cyber Patriot competition, which Luke mentioned earlier. This competition comprises of securing virtual machines. We worked with both a Windows and a Linux operating system to secure them. And we also learned how to create a packet tracer to see where things are traveling on a network. Now that the competition is over, we're working with Kali Linux, which is a operating system specifically for hackers, and we practice on it to see what happens without cybersecurity. And it really reinforces the positive aspects of learning cybersecurity and being trained in it, because without it, things would be pretty bad. Right.
For the future of the club, and again, before I go through this, Cyber Patriot is a year-long competition, and we got a really late start by starting in October. Most of the teams in the nation start in June or March, and they have a year-long of training and just going through all these systems. Each month is a round that they participate in. It's from Friday through Sunday. We usually do it on a Friday, and we've done it after school, and the competition lasts for 6 hours. So for 6 hours, they have to secure 3 virtual machines, which can take up to an hour to 3 hours apiece, a 30-question quiz, and a packet tracer, which is at the network engineer level difficulty. And they did this 3 times, round 1, round 2, and the state round. They were placed in the division, the state round, they competed, and they got 2nd place. So from starting in October to now, they beat 18 other teams in the state. So I think that is fantastic, and I can't hype up enough on what they did and how much they learned in such a short amount of time. Going forward, the future for this club, the way I kind of want to push it at least, is to continue to teach and let the students learn how to hack. And with programming, they hack by breaking code, writing code, and figuring out how it works. And with cybersecurity, you need ethical hackers to break into systems to find the vulnerabilities in order to fix them. And that's what I like to teach as well. The second point is to reach out to new students and spread the word. We want to create this space that students can learn what they want. It's not a curriculum that I put together. We do Tuesdays and Wednesdays meetings. Wednesdays is Cyber Range Wednesday. It's where we put these vulnerable machines where they can go in and hack. That's curriculum based on my standards. And then Tuesday is they come to the meeting place and just get help with whatever they want to do. If they want to build a RetroPie gaming arcade, they can. But we don't teach them everything they need to know. We give them resources and those skills in order for them to go home and learn on their own. Because there's no way we can provide everything in just 1 week or 1 day a week. And that was the third point, is to give the resources and skills. Is there any questions for me or the students?
Cyber Patriot, how long has that been in place? And also, what are the age, is it just high school students or middle school and high school, or just high school?
Yeah, they have 3 competitions. I said divisions earlier, but they have 3 divisions, and then it's broken up into tiers. The 3 divisions are middle school, high school, and open service, which is for JROTC, CAP, Naval Sea Cadets. And we competed in the open, or the high school division.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How many members are in this club?
We have 6 strong every meeting, and then I believe we have 10 to 12 on roster.
Okay.
We gathered a lot through the Cyber Challenge, which is through Merit EDU, and that was beginning of the year. I was allowed to go in a couple teachers' classrooms and take some of their teaching time to talk about the challenge. So spreading the word is our big thing too.
I have a question. So every year, is it the same sort of competition, or will it change next year? Will there be different outcomes, different projects?
In regards to Cyber Patriot?
Yes.
Cyber Patriot changes it up every year. However, the idea is the same. Currently, this is the 10th year, and they have 3 virtual machines, but those virtual machines change every year. So the difficulty is really placed in what tier you're in. And whether it be Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows Server 2012, Server 2016, et cetera, et cetera. So it changes in that aspect, but the makeup kind of stays the same.
So did everybody, since this is new, you guys started in October, did everybody come in at the same tier?
Correct. They all kind of learned as they went, and then we were placed in the silver tier from what they practiced in round 1 and 2.
So then what will happen? You guys got a grant, and that's how you got your Raspberry Pis and stuff.
Correct.
What happens? Technology changes so fast. I can remember through the years, KitKat, Keyline Pie, like how quickly everybody would wait to update everything. What will happen? Do you guys have a plan, should something happen, that a newer technology comes out, or there are new programs that you guys need?
I don't think it necessarily applies to us.
Okay.
Because Raspberry Pis are just the hardware,
Right.
and then we load the software, which updates every year. We bought Raspberry Pi 3s, which are usually up to date, and as regards to Cyber Patriot, we train whatever comes out.
Okay.
So updates doesn't necessarily apply.
This is awesome, you guys. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we have item I, committee reports. The first one is policy committee.
You still need to set that up.
Oh, still haven't, okay. And then finance?
We haven't had a finance committee meeting since our last board meeting. One was scheduled for tomorrow due to some requests, mainly from Ms. McLaughlin, that we canceled tomorrow, so we're going to be rescheduling.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, looking forward to those meetings. And we're on to the report section. First one is finance report. Ms. McLaughlin.
I have quite a bit this evening, making up for not being here at the last meeting, but a lot has happened this month. So after each section, I'm going to give you the opportunity to, if you have any questions. So the first one is to give you an update on the ORS 3% refund. The payment to the current active employees will be on this Friday, March 2nd. The file was processed and transmitted today, and everyone will receive their funds by direct deposit because they're current employees, and we know we have their current information. When we got the file from ORS and matched things up to our payroll records, there were some differences when we received the file. When we got the file from ORS, we also sent it to RISA, and then they enhanced the file, put in more information so that we could do comparisons with names, addresses, amounts. And there were some discrepancies between the payroll deduction and the ORS amount that they said everybody should be receiving in the funds that we received. So if the ORS amount was more, that's the amount that's being refunded. If the ORS amount is less, and the total of that amount is about $14,000, we looked at it. Some shortages were due to smart adjustments under different pay items over the course of time, and these were identified in the RISA file. So if the difference was due to those adjustments, we just moved on. The remaining shortages, which was a total of about $9,000, we are making the employees whole because we feel that's the right thing to do. That's actually what was deducted out of their payroll check. And there are some reasons why that happened. When Public Act 75 was issued, one of the exceptions that they said was if an employee made less than $18,000 in the prior year, instead of deducting 3%, the deduction would be 1.5%. Well, with everyone that was hired between July 1st, 2010 and September 3rd of 2012, they had no wages the prior year, so they allowed for the 1.5%. The district deducted it at 3%. So that's one of the reasons why we showed higher amounts. Also, there were some issues with the summer spread in July of 2010. We have to move, for people that are spread over the summer, we have to move the pay item, the amount for the pay item we have to shift everything for the summer spread to a different pay code. There were, they believe, some system problems, and that was not done correctly, and that led to some of the other shortages. Also, if workers' comp was not reported correctly, that could have caused some issues. So because there was also some unknowns and some substantial issues, I believe a lot of it was because of the people that were hired during that time. We decided to make everybody whole, so they were adjusted up to the amount that was actually deducted from their check. The payments to the inactive, retired, and deceased employees will be processed on March 16th. A letter went out accompanied by a form to provide us with the most current information so that we knew of any definite and current name and address changes. The form has to be returned to us. It has to be notarized. And then we will issue the checks based on checks will be run for those, and we'll issue the checks based on the forms that are returned. We do have 2 notaries in our office, so they have free notary service to have the forms notarized. It has been quite a process, a lot of work all the way from the state level down to RISA, down to the district, and I appreciate everyone's patience and cooperations and the efforts of my staff. Any questions on that?
I have one.
Question, Ms. Massa?
When you send that out, let's say that it's an unfound person or posthumous, where then does that money get?
If they're deceased, then we will try and, if it's someone that we didn't know about, then we will try and contact their family, and then we are required to follow the state of Michigan law as far as their beneficiary, which is spouse, children, parents, siblings. If we can't contact anybody, can't get the information. And then also deceased individuals are not run through payroll. They go through accounts payable, so we have to get the name and address and social security number of the beneficiary. For employees, if they don't turn in a form or it comes back undeliverable, then we hold it for a year. There's a process through the state. It's called the Sheets property. So if we have any unclaimed property, then it will be turned over to the state of Michigan a year from now.
So then that would go into the Michigan unclaimed property.
Yep.
And then those persons would have to seek that out.
Yes.
And the form and that validation would be there.
Yes. And when that time comes a year from now, I'll make an announcement that the specific payment, it's that time for it to be turned over, so that if anyone has any, I'm sure we still get phone calls, which is fine, but if anyone thinks they're still owed the money, they would have to go to the state.
Now, will that be held in its own non-interest bearing account?
It currently is. We would still run the checks on March 16th, and we would hold them.
Okay.
So by March 16th, all the funds that we receive from ORS will be totally dispersed, and they are in a it is in a non-interest bearing account.
Thank you.
Yep.
Then does that mean you have to go back and make everybody inactive? Because I know that was a big part of this process.
No, they were able to do this without us having to do that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah, RISA really has been very helpful
Good.
with this. So.
Mr. Kuchik, Teresa?
Yes.
Sorry, Ms. McLaughlin. To my understanding, you said it was going to be about $9,000 of making the employees whole as related. That I'm imagining is coming out of general funds.
Yes.
Is that correct? What expense code, what expense account would that fall under when it comes to the budget?
It's supposed to be allocated where the employee was originally charged to, or what's reasonably practical. Just like the FICA that we have to pay on all of this money, when they process that, RISA is requiring us to only tell them one account to have the employer portion of the FICA posted to. And then it's up to us to allocate it, and it's whatever the major function codes that's most practical to do, and no federal programs. So we still have that step to do. So when I do the budget amendment, I will identify where that part goes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay.
Oh, okay, more? There's more. The employee severance plan that was approved by the board at the last meeting. We had the general information meeting was this afternoon for anyone who wanted to come and get additional information. And then EPC did start with the individual counseling sessions this evening, and they go from today through Friday. And the hours and the location have been provided to the eligible employees. So day one, they have by law 45 days to make a decision. Day one was today, so day 45 will be April 13th. So they have to make up their mind. And once they make up their mind, after April 13th, they have 7 days to revoke their election.
I have a question, Mr. President.
Awesome.
So Ms. McLaughlin, so that would mean that as of April 20th would be the actual decision if the district will be moving forward with it in whole, correct?
Yes, we would probably start looking at everything on April 13th, with knowing that there's a possibility that someone could change their mind. But we would, because of staffing and everything, we would start looking at who made the election and if we were able to move forward with this. The next thing is the transportation RFPs. The 7 RFPs were sent out, and this past Friday was the deadline for returning them. We received 2 back. So Plant Moran was here to facilitate the opening, and they will take both bids and thoroughly go through them, do follow-up questions, and in preparation, there will be interview meetings held on Monday, March 26th. So, I asked them to follow up, and, we sent out 7, and we got 2 back, which is okay. But they did provide me with some information as to why some of the others didn't submit a bid. One of the companies is actually part of the same parent company that Trinity is under. So since Trinity was bidding, that's probably why they didn't bid. One didn't believe the size of our operation suited them economically. One said that they had too many commitments for 2018. And, one they were still waiting to hear from, and one said they preferred to propose on projects that have pre-bid meetings. We didn't require a pre-bid meeting because we don't have any transportation facilities. It was recommended, and I agreed that we really probably didn't need one. There was ample opportunity to ask questions. That was why they had almost a month to respond. So Plant Moran is in the process of of going through everything, and our next step will be the interview meeting at the end of March.
Was one the incumbent?
I'm sorry?
Sorry. Was one the incumbent?
Yes, it was. And it's that time of year, we're already starting to look at 2018-19. The governor has released his state aid proposal. It's still very early in the game, but a couple of the highlights is that he is proposing an increase in the foundation allowance of between $120 and $240.
Teresa, I did cover this at the last meeting.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
Okay, so the minimum will go from 76.31 to 78.71. So I'll stop there. So stay tuned for the next steps. And that's where I'm at.
Any other questions for Ms. McLaughlin?
Thank you. No?
No?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to curriculum report.
All right. We just concluded the middle school English language arts curriculum recommendation that will be coming to you at the next board meeting. Would you prefer to have this be a work item first and then an action item, or would you rather it just go straight to an action item?
I prefer a work session discussion on
Review
it first. I don't know what the others.
I mean, I prefer things to come to action first, but that's just, I mean, that would be my take on it, because then if we have questions, we can still talk about it. If we like it, we can approve it, and then you don't have to wait 2 more weeks. If we do have more questions that you're not suited for, then we can hold it over till the next meeting. But I guess we'll ask if anybody else has opinions on, I mean, we can fully discuss it at the time. There's nothing that we can't discuss
Right.
when it's being presented. Mr. Green?
Just take a, just a straw vote, just see what you guys, which way we want to go. Everybody wants to go. I mean, I would rather have a work session, personally.
Okay.
How
Anybody else
quickly
have
do
a
you need
strong
a
opinion on
response
it?
for
Let's
this?
start with Neil
I don't
and
think
just see what-
we're not in a super big rush, so it's
Okay.
okay to have it be a work session first.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask what your preference was.
We can discuss it in a work session first, sure.
Okay, great. So the middle school science department is continuing to work on gaining access. They're demoing some materials from Amplify Science, STEM Scopes, and Elevate Learning. So that's still in process. We just recently finished the Michigan Profile for Healthy Youth, MyFi surveys at the middle and the high school level, and we're compiling that data at this time. The Panorama Social and Emotional Learning Surveys were completed by the middle and the high school, all students this month. So now all levels have reported out on the 5 topics that we're addressing for social emotional learning: grit, self-management, growth mindset, social awareness, and self-efficacy. And then the data is being utilized by the instructional leadership and data team to plan for next steps. Monday, March 12th at 6 p.m., the Southgate Community School District is hosting a parent and staff workshop on growth mindset. It's presented by Connie Hamilton. It's going to be at the Wayne County Community College Downriver campus in the Ray Mix room. It was recently on the superintendent's Facebook page, so that information is there to register for that. The spots are limited, so if we can have folks sign up for that as soon as possible, that'd be great. We'd also like to make you aware of a name change for transitional kindergarten. In an effort to provide some clarity to parents and consistency with the other districts downriver, we're looking at now calling the transitional kindergarten program the Young Fives program. There was some confusion because kindergarten was in the name of transitional kindergarten, that the students would be going to first grade after that, and that's truly not the case. So we felt that the name change would address this confusion. And then that information will be shared at the Common Kindergarten Roundup on March 21st at Davidson Middle School at 6 p.m. And then finally, Jill Kristen Stewart, one of the counselors from the high school, and myself went to the Getting Started workshop for the early middle college program last Friday. And so it's our intention to share that proposal with you. We're still compiling all of the components that are due for the application to MDE. And again, my question was going to be, would you prefer that to come to you as a work session first, and then we'll put it as an action item, or straight to action?
I think the
Same.
flavor of the group is going to be to
Good deal.
talk about
Okay.
it and then act on it next.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Massey?
Just one quick question for clarification. For the transitional kindergarten going to early fives, I know in the past, if we spoke about it and someone had said early fives, they were quick to say, no, it's transitional kindergarten. Will the process for interviewing and getting kids signed up for that program still be the same?
As far as I know, same exact screening process will take place.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Superintendent's report.
So I would like to, again, start by thanking the Southgate Police Department for their continued presence at, in, or near our schools. Officers regularly visit schools during entry and/or dismissal. Parents, please do not assume that something bad is happening just because you see a police vehicle in one of our parking lots. School districts are struggling with a variety of attempts to disrupt learning. Some students might want to create turmoil. We are monitoring student behavior and will continue to investigate all situations that may be deemed a threat to the safety of our students. School threats are a felony. I'd like to encourage parents to discuss the seriousness of this issue, discuss the possible ramifications of posting anything on social media that may be deemed threatening. I'd like to encourage, on a good note, everyone to come to see the high school's production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I had the pleasure of attending their first production after the recent installation of the new sound and light systems and the new curtains. The systems have further enhanced the performance for audiences, and they are performing this Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. both nights. It is truly worth seeing the difference that the new sound, lights, and curtains make. In conjunction with kindergarten orientation, kindergarten school of choice begins this Thursday, March 1st, and runs through Thursday, March 15th. In a few minutes, you'll be voting on an HR update that includes Karen Anderson. So after subbing in the district for 4 years, Karen was hired as a paraprofessional in 1993. In 2002, she became an administrative assistant, and on April 22nd of 2013, she came to work for me in the curriculum department. I want to personally thank her for her friendship, dedication, reliability, integrity, perseverance, loyalty, honesty, and respectfulness. You will be missed. Thank you. Saturday, the JORTC has a competition at John Glenn High School. And if you don't know, this is the wrap-up of winter sports. So I asked Dave just to put together a quick summary. So this is from Dave Pinkowski. We're in the midst of winding down our winter sports season, and I have some highlights to share. Many of our teams have already entered or about to enter just completed playoff season. The varsity wrestling team had 4 athletes qualify for the MHSAA individual state finals beginning this Friday. This year's finals are being held at Ford Field for the first time ever. Good luck to Ryan Casito, Alec Baylog, Logan Paschan, and Isaac Stench. The wrestling team also repeated the Downriver League co-champions. The girls' varsity competition cheer team placed second in the MHSAA district and third in the MHSAA regional to advance to the state finals. I'm going to put the state finals this Saturday at 10 a.m. in Grand Rapids. The bowling team had another productive season, with the boys narrowly missing the cut to move on to state finals. Girls' varsity basketball plays at home at districts tomorrow versus Wyandotte at 7 p.m. Varsity hockey plays at home tomorrow at 7:20 versus Gabriel Richard in a pre-regional. The boys' varsity basketball begins district play on Wednesday, the 7th at 5 p.m. at Wyandotte, and their opponent is yet to be determined. As always, we are proud of all of our Anderson High School athletic programs and activities, and if you have additional information to share, whether it's band, drama, etc., or have additional information we may enjoy, please let us know so that we can celebrate and enjoy all the students' accomplishments. Thanks, and go Titans. And that's from Dave Pinkowski.
All set?
I am all set.
Any questions for Ms. Pastor? Okay. We are back to citizens' comments again, if anybody's changed their mind, wants to talk. Nope. Okay, it takes us to the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of closed session and regular board meeting minutes from February 13, 2018, and an HR update.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, consent agenda is approved. And the action items are next. The first one is the approval of a new course, Medical Detectives at Davidson Middle School for 2018-19 school year.
So based on the information presented during our work session on February 13th, I would like to recommend adding this course as an opportunity for the students at Davidson Middle School.
Mr. President,
Mr. Green.
make a motion to approve Medical Detectives as a new course for Davidson Middle School for the 2018-19 school year.
Support?
We have a motion and support. Any discussion? Dr. Bumpano.
Thank you. Davidson's been working on getting new courses and electives for students to increase their interest as we improve our curriculum. I contacted actually a school in Maryland to inquire on their course, which is Medical Detectives, and the feedback that I received from that was positive from teachers, students, and parents. And the course is in line with the next generation science standards. When we talk about early middle college, this course allows students who have an interest in forensics and biomedical sciences to obtain early hands-on experience with this project-based course, so I support it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Koopser.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. As curiously, I know that they presented, and I think it dovetails between this action item and the next one. That's on here is music as literature. Excuse me. Course of music as literature. My question was is that, and when I saw the presentations last week, we talked about the curriculum as it relates to these particular courses, and it seemed as though I didn't really see what the syllabus would be for it. And the question was, so, well, now they're going to go explore. So
So this actual course is a Project Lead the Way course, and this actually has curriculum and, I don't know that it has a syllabus, but definitely has curriculum already attached. That was part of the course attachments to the last one. The next one is the one that doesn't.
I guess I'll save my question for the next action item then.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions, discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That does pass. And that takes us to the next item, which is approval of new course, Music is Literature at Southgate Anderson High School for 2019-2020 school year.
So based on the information presented during the work session on February 13th, 2018, I would like to recommend adding this course as an opportunity for the students at Anderson High School. If you'd like to have her come back in January or February of 2019 to present the curriculum outline for the course, I would be glad to arrange that with a teacher. So this gives her the opportunity to spend, that you support the notion of this class, but that we would like her to come back in about a year and give us the curriculum for it before it's truly
A course.
a course, which would be for the 19-20 school year, sorry.
So there's an extra year in between. This one wouldn't be for next year, it'd be for the following year.
Correct,
And that would give time to develop the curriculum and present it to us.
correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Pastor? Before we have our discussion, I guess, if you have questions for Ms. Pastor.
Yes, I do, sorry. So, I'm trying to understand what the motion then is. It feels like we're tentatively supporting this course, depending on potentially, and with what your offer is on here, and saying that she could come back January, February to present the curriculum. And we're saying, do we support her going forward, and that at first blush, it sounds like a good idea, but are we ready to say yes without a curriculum, that we're saying that it should be a new offering? And so I'm trying to understand, what am I approving here in terms of, am I approving a class that I don't have any real detail on, or am I approving the support? That's kind of what I'm trying to understand what this motion is supposed to.
So point of order as to that, could the motion be read to dovetail or enhance what Ms. Passard said, that we are passing it as non-objective based on future review of curriculum?
Would that affect the,
So I think she would be very happy to proceed with that. The work involved in getting a course and the course options for students would need to happen sooner rather than later. So if it's something that we're worried about, then maybe we have her come back in December. Would that make the cut for the course?
We usually finish it mid-January, so December would be okay.
So we could actually have her come in December before we start publishing or getting ready to publish the course guides.
so the motion would basically need to say pending approval of
Curriculum.
developed curriculum?
And we could put in December of 2018 if you wanted
In
to be that
December.
specific.
Okay.
It could also read to mention, as Ms. Pastor just said, prior to publication in the student guide,
Yeah,
in
that
case
would,
we had to change that around or things got busy.
I think that would make sense. I think that would be an appropriate motion. That wouldn't discourage the
I don't think
development
so.
anyway?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
Does that work for you?
That works for me, yeah.
Okay.
I understand why I'm approving.
All right, so we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the item.
Want me to make the,
Yeah, probably safest.
I'd like to make the motion to approve moving forward on the course development to enter into course options, music as literature, as a new course for Anderson High School for the 2019-20 school year, pending a December introduction to the material and curriculum prior to January when publishing of the new course guide happens.
Makes sense.
That's the longest motion.
That's nowhere near the longest, that's nowhere near the longest one we've had.
That's nowhere near.
I don't care.
No, I got Andy jumping on his support. Okay, all right, we have a motion and we have support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, that one will pass. All right, we look forward to the development.
We had it.
Oh, sorry, we,
Backwards.
sorry, yeah, well, we had to get the discussion from the administration first, and then we had our internal discussion, sorry. All right, so number 3, we're on to superintendent goals. Ms. Pastor.
So based on the information presented during our work session on 2/13, I would like to recommend approving my goals. I can tell you that I did go back through the MASB goals and really looked for what has now become a very top priority, which is security, and there really isn't anything that is specific to that. And although it's not outlined on here specifically, that has really come to the top. But these are the goals I presented on 2/13 prior to the unfortunate events in Parkland. And I did review the rubric that you'll be using. Does not include much about safety.
Mr. President,
Mr. Green.
I make a motion to approve superintendent goals as presented for February 2018 through June 2019.
Okay, I have a motion and support by Dr. Pomponio. Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, that passes. Okay, you know what we expect now, right? It's perfectly clear? All right. Item number 4, pay increase for Director of Maintenance.
So this is one that I was sort of caught in the middle of. So during the 2014-15 school year, the director of maintenance was an hourly employee and made $70,349.50. The decision was made to move this to a salaried position. Teresa McLaughlin was present during the decision and has more details. Would you like to tell? Because I wasn't
So
around.
at that time, central office administration was proactive and consulted with our attorneys and looked at all of our non-represented contracts. And they were looked at to determine, A, if they're adequate, and B, if the people are being paid correctly. There's certain guidelines that the Department of Labor has established, whether a particular position should be paid hourly or if it should be a salaried position. And based on that, there were several people that we had to make a change to, either going from salary to hourly or hourly to salary. The director of maintenance position was one of the positions that was required to go from hourly to salary. When we did that, the goal was to not have anyone's pay less than it was. When I did the analysis and looked back at the history, clearly it is what was less, and I was not the lead on this. I do not recall how everything behind the decision of where his current salary is right now. The people that were more involved are no longer here, but we are trying to, we looked at this and are trying to do the correct thing with the compensation for that position.
So as a result, the director has had to work, DM Burr has had difficulty maintaining a full staff on grounds and snow removal, especially in the second year of our three-year contract. As a result, the director has had to work overtime to maintain our grounds. In January of 2018, we received a new contract from DM Burr that will save us, this is a little bit of a change.
It's an estimated $162,000 as of the end of this year. Because of the changes that we made to the contract, our original contract with them for grounds and maintenance was to have 4 ground staff. They have had extreme difficulties fulfilling that commitment. In the first year of the contract, they had to give us a credit of over $10,000. So far, during this year, I have credits of over $36,000. So they agreed to amend our contract to go from 4 grounds into people to 1. So because of that, we still have to have lawn maintenance and snow removal. So we have contracted with the company to help us, assist us with that. So the $162,000 is the savings going through this year, continuing with an outside company to do the lawn maintenance and to do the snow removal at our 3 biggest building, which is Anderson, Davidson, and Garish. The estimated cost of that is, and it's hard to tell, especially with the winter, but I've estimated the cost at $125,000. And then the total cost of the director of maintenance with the proposed increase in salary plus the FICA and the retirement and workers' comp would be a total of $15,000. So the overall net savings at this point, we're estimating over the life of the term of the 3-year contract would be about $22,000 with this proposed change.
So what Teresa may or may not realize is that in Asher's 107 grant, they actually have included approximately $10,000 of maintenance in their lawn that will save us another $10,000 if that grant is approved.
And we do have that also in our current grant. It's a slightly smaller amount. And then looking at it, we determined that it actually should be a little bit larger. So we've already started that piece of it with the 107 grant.
So we
that's not included in this.
We also looked at the Michigan School Business Officials and Hiring Solutions from 2017 salary report that includes average salaries for facilities directors, and you have that information. The number of employees, budget number of students, the region, and the institution type help affect these averages, and the average range of salaries from $66,819 to $87,027. So that's the details.
I have a question. Why are we finding out now about the defects of the DM Burr contract? Because I know we heard of things throughout the year about not enough men or manpower. So what can we do as a district with our contract, because we privatize that when it's going bad? Because, I mean, we've had complaints. Who do we know? I mean, how do we know who's doing what and when it's going to get done, if it's going to be done at all? So when do we know about those in that contract, if it's being defective, if they're being defective?
Well, in the contract, you know, after a few months of dealing with trying to get credits and them saying, you know, because we still have a contract with them, so we have to give them the opportunity to rectify the problem and the shortage. We gave them that opportunity, and I was continually, every month, we were still short, and they would have to calculate credits, and then I'd have to remind them to calculate credits. So that's why the contract amendment was effective January 1st of 2018 for the ground staff.
And how long, I'm sorry.
Hang on, are you
I'm
all set?
good.
You're set?
Thanks.
I do have a point of order off of what Darlene said, if you don't mind, Tim. I do know that there was a time when we were having a problem with our contracted group being able to find and keep employees, as Dr. Pomponio said, and we had it was part of our work meeting, and the problem was that the work wasn't being done, so the company was turning in, I can't remember what they were called, but basically requests for overtime. So we were paying a premium for work to be done because of their turnover. That's a good summary of that?
Yes, but that went, when this first started, even with the prior company, the director of maintenance kept track of the hours that we were shorted, and a lot of the overtime was absorbed by the shortage of hours, so we weren't actually paying anything more.
Okay, because for a while, our budgets, I remember going over at least 4 months in a row where it was actually costing more than before we had outsourced, and that's when the board at the time had met. So with this, and as Dr. Pomponio said, when things come with these changes, I'm curious as to, do you know how this, it says that you were there during the decision.
I was there during the part of the discussion.
Okay, it
Yes.
says decision,
Okay.
so.
Okay, discussion,
So
yes.
I'm just wondering, how did it end up on action?
This?
Yes.
Because it's an increase.
Okay, but it didn't come to work session, it went directly to action. Is that something that Finance Committee met and spoke about?
Are you talking about the current increase or the change back in 2014-15?
The current increase.
There's no formal rule that something has to be discussed as a work item, but prior to coming to an action item. It can come to an action item, but we are getting just a little bit off topic of the maintenance director's increase.
They added it to it. She added the differences and where the disparages are. and
Right, but I
how we're
think.
saving money, so that was
But I
part of
think
it.
the overall question is how and when should we be getting updates on outsourced services, if I'm understanding
Well, my
what you're
overall
saying.
question was, did this come to the Finance Committee, did they discuss it?
No. But that's not, I think what your questions are basically is how and when should we be getting updates on outsourced companies and contractors? Is
No, I have a comment on the pay increase, but then she was talking about how there was more money because of this and because their DM Burr's improficient issues.
Yeah, they were looking at the justification.
Yeah, so
for
that's
that.
where that's where that discussion came from for me.
Okay, okay.
And then lastly, when will we know about the approval of the Asher grant? Or the Asher, the $10,000?
That usually comes in the late spring or early summer for next year. But they have approved the 2017-18 grant that does have an amount on there, it's just a lower amount.
Mr. Estheimer, had you next.
I just had a question about, I know that we made a change to the contract, an amendment to the contract in 2018, in January of this year. When does the contract expire? When can
June
we go out for
30th
new
of
RFPs?
2019.
2019, thank you.
Mr. Cooper, sir.
I had a question as it relates to the protocol of, there's a series of, or I'd say there's some employees within the district that have their own individual contracts. I would imagine the director of maintenance has his own.
Yes.
And my question is that, at what point do all raises for all of those individuals always come to the board? And if the answer is no, when does it become material? I'm trying to understand that part of the process, and when those decisions are made.
Well, since I've been here, there's been no change. I guess, we would check at that time if we made any adjustments to hourly or salaried employees.
But for example, when we were giving Dan Connors an increase, how did that process happen?
I wasn't here, so.
Well, we had a
hang
curriculum, too.
on, I'm gonna bring this back. Did you get your question answered, Mr. Cooper?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
So your point is that there haven't been any increases, so therefore there hasn't been a process? Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct, or I haven't had the need to research to say, okay, now that we're looking at doing this, what the necessary steps are.
So this being the first instance, and
I'm sorry, I was holding over here.
my question is that this being that first instance, and it's 10,000, which I would say is potentially material. For him, it definitely would be, but as an overall budget, my question is there any policy that we like to work within as it relates to the non-represented staff, that if they are getting a pay increase, at what point does it come to the board for approval or review?
So there's nothing in policy or law that requires a pay raise come to the board. It's just best practice. Because I checked
Okay.
after.
And also in this case, it's going back to looking at his compensation when he was an hourly employee. And I can't state with any certainty how we went from 70 to the low 60s to 60. And so, and looking at the increase in duties, especially, with working with DM Burr and what that position is now required to do, in addition to the normal duties for a director. That's why we're bringing it to the board for consideration.
So I'd also like to say that in my short time that I've been here, he also does a lot in overseeing part of the bond and the things in Platte Moran. He does sit on the bond committee, and he does help oversee some of the, he's not obviously the general contractor, but he does really help make sure that those things are done as well.
Mr. Green, I had you next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we all are kind of on the same page as I'm hearing the discussion to expand on Ms. Pastor's comments. Ms. Pastor and I had, I questioned the fact of, as Mr. Koopser, when does it come to the board? Does it have to come to board approval? Ms. Pastor told me she would check into it. I actually asked a recommendation, maybe if we needed some legal advice. Ms. Pastor got back to me very quickly and said that it's not law, like she had just stated, but it is best practice to bring it to the board. So this whole process of when pay increases for in my opinion, with all this, as we move forward, to answer the question that it hasn't happened, that maybe it's something that we put into a policy committee and kick around to discuss where this board wants that type of policy to be created for the rules of pay increase, and try to work it out in that way, since it is something that's
Done it 3 times, so.
Since I've been on the board, it's been best practice because we review the budget. So we have had just the directors mainly come to the board for any pay increase. It's been the superintendent and the curriculum director, and so all the directors.
Food services.
It's been our experience with that.
Any other questions for administration before we bring it back up here?
What do you mentioned 3 times, I'm not
I
understanding
feel
what
like
that is, so if you can
this
help me
maybe needs to
understand.
go to a work item or for discussion, because we have done this. This isn't our first time doing this. We've done this with our food director. We've done this with the superintendent, curriculum director, with non-represented staff. So there's been a process that's happened that has been static each of those 4 times. So, and I think, and Darlene would probably know, that the policy is when it is over a certain amount, that the option is to go to the board with that amount of money. Now, we may have released that when we got off of being, out of our dilemma that we were in, but we have done this several times in the past.
I have to review it again because I know that when we went through the process of putting together the policies that we currently have with Neola, somewhere in there it said all decisions need to come to the board for approval, contract decisions and things like that. So, and of course, it can get picked apart through other policies too, and who has the authority to make those decisions and what amounts, so.
And another example too, Mr. President, is when we were doing this with food services, we had the job description upon hire, and then we had like the new revised job description that coincided with it, so that it was just part of the record of the changes.
Again, I mean, we're still in discussion with administration of this. We haven't formally brought it back to us yet, but my recollection of it, I don't recall reviewing anything for food services except recently when we discussed contracting out, and that more had to do with us formally approving the co-ed agreement with Grozil, and that was a modification to salary as well, but it also had to do with the fact that we were sharing the services of that position. So I'm going to agree with Mr. Green, and in my looking through the policies, I can't see anything that mandates us to take this action, but it is a best practices, I think. So, Dr. Pomponi.
So just from my experience in just the 8 or 9 years that I've been here, it's always come to the board and it's always been good practice, just because we have to review and approve the budget. So we're looking at the figures and we don't want to go into deficit, so we need to scrutinize those fees. So that's why I think it's good practice to continue that too.
Right, I don't think there's any disagreement that it's a best practice, and I think that's why we're being asked right now.
That's why I'm making that statement.
So, okay. That said, I'll entertain a motion if there's one forthcoming.
I think, Andy, you made the motion already? Oh.
No, we haven't had a motion yet.
Okay.
So we have to make a motion to discuss it, or, so I guess it doesn't matter who makes it. Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the pay increase of $10,000 for the Director of Maintenance.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Mr. Koopser? Okay, now we can discuss it.
Mr. President, I just want to be clear on my stance on this. As I look through this, I think it's viable. I just didn't quite understand the process, like everybody else up here at the time, of why it didn't come to us first. I do think it's best practice that it does come to us first from this point forward. That's my opinion. But as for looking at the numbers now that I have it in front of me, I think it's a viable, I think there's some viable reasons to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Pomponi.
Okay, so my notes were based on not knowing the information that I received from Mrs. McLaughlin about, Mrs. Pastor, about the funds that we have and the problems that we have with Dan Burr, but just with respect to any raises or any kind of increases, we just got out of deficit, and I think that was a very tough time for everyone in the district. And I think it's important, maybe I'm being conservative, but I think it's important that we scrutinize all expenses because we're making these decisions. So when we hear about these increases, and we're talking about other areas and different deficiencies and different places where we want to improve, I think it's important to be conservative at this point because we have legislation that's in the near future that may be sharing funds with charter schools. So there's a lot of unknowns, and it makes me nervous because, you know, as a person that takes care of your own finances, you're going to think that way. You want to be conservative. So without that information, I just felt like now's not a good time to keep adding to the expenses. But if you're saying that there's enough money that has happened with those changes, then that's my decision before that information, so I'll support.
It's okay for me to add a comment. This wasn't a consideration until we knew we had those contract changes and we had the savings from the Deember contract.
Thank you.
Mr. Restheimer.
Yeah, I would say that it's a good, hearty discussion. I was taken a little bit aback by it as well, but after seeing, as Dr. Pomponio pointed out, that it's really not affecting the budget. In fact, there's some savings involved, so it's so that isn't the issue. The issue isn't whether or not we can afford it. I think it goes back to the process, and it sounds like we've kind of covered that area. So I'm in support of the raise. Sounds like it's needed. He's doing the work for it, but we'll get back to that process part of it in a future meeting, and we can make sure that we have a final approval in the. I mean, we're getting a final approval now, but I mean a heads up in the future.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Koopser.
Thank you. I was just looking at the salary ranges as it relates to the facilities director that's on the back of the action. One of the experiences that was a requirement is a minimum of 5 to 7 years of supervisory experience, working with construction contractors, technical experience in safety, general maintenance, and other related technical areas is required. Curiously, I mean, I don't know the individual. Can I ask what the experience is as I look at these percentiles and quartiles and we look at this amount? Do we know the experience? How long has he worked for the district? Do we know his experience at all?
So I know he's worked for the district since 2014-15. I don't know all of the different licenses he currently has. HVAC is one that comes to mind, some type of plumbing. Maybe you know the rest, I apologize.
He worked for GCA Services.
What's that?
That was our third-party contractor before Deember.
Okay.
He was a skilled mechanical person with them. Prior to that, I don't exactly have all the details of his past work history.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay. All right. Seeing nothing else, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so none opposed. Okay, so that motion passes. Okay, and item number 5 is approval of anti-bullying committee.
Yeah.
Should I make a motion?
So I guess this was asked to be put on by 2 board members. I don't know if one of you would like to present it, or
I can.
Dr. Pomponio, you can present the item.
Okay, the anti-bullying committee is something that we had established for, I believe, 4 years or longer. We initially pushed the discussion on the anti-bullying when we were seeking accreditation with the QAR, which is the Quality Assurance Review Team, the North Central Association Commission on Accreditation and School Improvement back in 2010. We were grouped together to work on areas of improvement in the district while seeking accreditation. The group consisted of teachers, staff, social workers, special ed para, principals, Mrs. Mossop, and myself. And I created the form, which is the incident report that we are currently using. So bringing this committee back to be reestablished for board approval, it was during the time where state legislators passed legislation that mandated local districts to create policies, notifications, and annual reporting requirements. At that time, we requested that the superintendent also send the board monthly incident reports from all buildings. During a time when we're observing MyFi surveys, national research, and reported increases in suicides, youth depression, and increase in bullying and cyberbullying reports. So to date, there's more research corroborating reports of increased youth depression, suicides, suicide rates at alarming rates. In addition, with the increase in one-parent households, technology innovation, which includes the internet, cyberbullying, and bullying, these have also increased at alarming rates. So with student safety being paramount, this committee is not only necessary but long overdue for accountability and awareness and continued awareness with all these reports and research and the data that's showing that we have youth that are in trouble that we need to support. Our students come first, and that's why I believe that this anti-bullying committee should be a continued standing committee.
Thank you. Okay. So, so with that said, I guess I'll go ahead and entertain a motion so we can start discussing. Mr. Green?
Mr. President, I make a motion to, whoops, wrong one. Mr. President, I make a motion to approve an anti-bullying committee as a standing committee for the Board of Education through December of 2018.
I have a motion. Is there support?
I'll second that.
Chris Timer. Okay. And we'll go ahead and discuss it. So, anyone want to lead it off beyond the...
I will, Mr. President, since I made the motion.
Green.
I know that a lot of committees, or the committees we had talked about in our retreat, I'm well aware of that. And I'm not in favor of opening up a can of worms about every committee. But this committee is something that kind of bothered me then, I think. I think it's good practice to revisit it, especially what happened last week, but even before, it's happening a lot. I do understand that a lot of committees, a lot of committees bring action. I'm not so sure that all the time action has to be brought to this board for a committee. A lot of times, a lot of discussion, information. I'm also well aware of the fact that this school district has parent involvement in committees with the previous superintendent and the current superintendent. I just believe that in this situation, sometimes less is better, but in this situation, to get as much information on this and to get more sets of eyes looking at it and to dig deeper into it in this day and age of education is a pretty viable request.
Thank you. Mr. Coops, are you next?
Thank you. I'd like to direct this question to Ms. Pastor. As it relates to could you help me understand what work that currently is being done within the district that would involve administration, teachers, parents, counselors, as it relates to the anti-bullying? Is there a regular set of meetings? Is there a group that's organized? Is there any type of activity that is being done?
So there was a anti-bullying work group that we met as a result. We sort of morphed the sex education advisory, some members from that, with the community support team or anti-bullying members that I wasn't aware of, and we got together and decided on what type of curriculum we wanted to make sure was happening, and that's where Mr. Himmick and I presented. We bought through 31A funds, we bought an anti-bullying 6 through 12 kit, and that's where we had those half days in September and October, and we shared the same video at the same time across the middle school, and they all did a common activity afterwards. We had focus groups before and afterwards that we found out, you know, did the kids like it? What adjustments? Just last Friday, Davidson had a presentation from Defeat the Label. The committee did get together, and one of the things that we want to make sure is in place is some suicide protocol in the district, so that what happened last week was very unfortunate, but the rate of suicide is twice the amount of students die or have died as a result of suicide. rather than active shooters, and that is not okay. And we want to do everything we can to prevent it. And if it means that if a student says, I'm thinking about committing suicide, what's the protocol for that staff member in order to follow up to, for example, you don't leave that student alone. Do all of our staff really know that? And we want moving forward. So even though it's called an anti-bullying work group, we are doing other things, and suicide is the next thing on the agenda. And as a result of my 5 results 2 years ago, we had a lot of students that were suffering from just being sad, depressed, and so this is a continuation of that conversation. As far as the anti-bullying board committee, I'm not positive everything that was done because I wasn't a member of that committee.
I wasn't asking on the board committee, I was curious about what are the current ongoing activities with the staff?
So we also have a
that
community
are going-
support team that I'm a brand new member of. And so we sort of have these parallel things happening, but the community support team is looking at what types of barriers are there for learning. And so we have some survey questions on our perception surveys that are going out soon that will try to help us with gather data to help us. So we have perceived barriers in our heads, but we're going to actually collect some data to find out, is it internet, is it transportation, those kinds of things. So anti-bullying, it's not really part of the community support team, but it could be. Bullying, right, could be a barrier to learning. So I'm sure I haven't exactly helped you. I'm sorry.
Not much, but it's okay.
I'm in support of this, this committee as well. I went back to kind of wrap my brain about the work that this committee has done in the past, and I kind of came across in a couple different meetings it was discussed that that the committee looked into as some type of a program they were going to bring back to the board, but I hadn't seen that yet. I think it was called the Stop It program. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, but then we went on to look at OK to Say. We started looking at that again because it was cheaper.
So if this committee, when this committee resumes, that's going to be something that you'll work with administration on moving these types of programs forward.
We're always working with them. Yeah.
No, I mean
the
about
principals.
specific.
Oh, definitely.
Right, because they already they're working on these things as well. I hope that we can work together. If we, between the work that you two do, you and Mrs. Mossop, I'm hoping that maybe we can help the kids a little bit better with a different set of eyes. So I'm looking forward to that type of interaction.
Thank you. Dr. Pomponio.
Mr. Koopser, were you asking about why would the parents or the teachers and groups will get together to discuss?
I wasn't asking why. I mean, I understand that why. My question is that what makes it different than a board committee, or could the board members be a part of that conversation? I'm just trying to understand that is there duplicative efforts that are happening, and it sounds like it's not the focus of the barriers to education is anti-bullying, from what I've heard from Ms. Pastor. So that's helping me understand, is there a difference between the two of them? And if that there is, then maybe there's space for both in my mind. But if there isn't, then it seems duplicative of efforts that's already being done, and can we be a part of that conversation? And that's what I was trying to get my head around in terms of what's already happening in that space by administration, by teachers, by the superintendent. That's what I was trying to get at.
Okay, so to answer that, this committee's been probably active, I think, 4 years now. And I've gotten information from MASB, from state, from legislators, and other potential groups, work groups, and different processes that other students are using with other schools. And I brought everything to the board in a discussion to talk about and review what we did in that committee. And then oftentimes nothing was done. It just it was whatever was presented. So, and it had to be more of an interest of like a bigger group. And then just recently, the anti-bullying work group started, and actually with the teachers and members in that group, a lot more got done than I tried to push through, because I kept bringing the okay to say and asking about the free presentations, and it really didn't go anywhere. But I still brought a lot of good information, and I believe this is just a group that's going to work on specific parts of the curriculum and get that more into the classroom. So that's, I think they're two kind of different areas, so they're both helpful, I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another point of order. In addition, we've actually been a committee since 2011. It was right after we met the standards in 2010 set by the state, and then in 2014 it changed with some addition of cyberbullying techniques. And in our group, we talk about suicide prevention and awareness. We try to find the difference between the MyFi results, and we do get a monthly report on how many bullying incident reports are turned in. So when we see 2 or 3 a quarter come in, and then we see a MyFi presentation where it says that 85% of students have been or have witnessed bullying, then we see that there's a large discrepancy between those two things. So we look at those things. We've brought many things to come together to the board to look at, passed on information. If it is best for the district to have these two groups merge, our whole goal is to be, best for parents and students, and they just need to know that there is a group of adults that are across the board working on this. So if that's something, like Dr. Pomponio said, if we were working on a bunch of stuff and brought things and tried and it didn't happen, and then this other work group gets together recently and is able to mirror and do the same thing and move forward with things, then maybe it is folding the two together. So I don't know.
Anybody else? No? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give my input on this. This was discussed at our retreat work session, and I thought that's what we all kind of came to an agreement to, is that we were going to try and fold the board committee into the administration group of what was being done. So I guess that's why I didn't see a need for a separate board committee. I was hoping we would just fold it into the administrative group. But I have had interest from members who say they would like to see a board committee separate. So I don't know that I can support this. I was hoping it would go the other way, but if that's not the will of the group, then that's okay too. So, all right. With that, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay, so that motion does pass.
Did you vote no?
I voted no.
Okay.
Did they make a motion?
Okay, and now we have a committee, so
Teresa, did they make a
I
motion?
made the
Roll
motion.
call.
you don't need a roll call. I was the only
No,
one.
I'm
who voted
sorry.
no.
There was just nope, we're fine.
Everybody said yes, I said no.
Got it.
Okay, so then now that we have a committee, we need to establish members for that committee. And before we get into having any motions on it, I guess anybody who has interest, I'd like that discussed kind of as a group before we can get the motion, so we can get a sense of who would want to serve on that board. So, Dr. Pomponio.
I've worked with MASB and have gone to many conferences that are related to the anti-bullying. That's why I've been so active for 8 years. And part of what, this is a passion of mine, because what I've done is gone into these groups and met with parents who have lost students to suicide. And so I felt like just to have that open discussion and that group open and available, especially during times where we need student safety, we need places for parents or students to access or even send us information or advice so we can be more aware and accountable of different things that we have going on with programs and things like that. But yeah, my experience has been 8 years, and I'm in the trenches with Wayne County and the state with a lot of these programs and initiatives to start with the students to keep them safe.
So you'd be interested in serving on that committee? Okay, thank you. Anybody else interested in serving?
As a social worker and a therapist, I've always had interest in being a part of this group since its genesis, so I would be interested in being on it. If we can schedule an initial meeting, I do think it would be interesting to invite our superintendent so that we can review what's going on our side and to not take off the table those two groups merging.
Okay. Okay, so I have Ms. Mossop has an interest in serving as well. Anybody else have an interest in serving on the group? We need a third.
I will.
Green? Okay. Okay, the door is open for anybody else. Okay, I'm not seeing any. We need three, and we have three presented. So with that, we can go in and entertain a motion for the members of that committee.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following members of the Anti-Bullying Committee: Ms. Mossop, Dr. Pomponio, and Mr. Green.
I have a motion.
Support.
And support. Okay, any discussion? No? Beat it to death, all right. Okay, we'll call, go ahead and, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, and then just as a point of order, I guess, we can go ahead and, the three of you can coordinate a meeting, and then once you have that meeting, you'll need to elect a chairperson who will then continue on, for the duration of the committee.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And number 7, we have an approval of out-of-state professional development.
So in the past, we have not approved the attendance of any out-of-state professional development. The MDE's theory is that all professional development may be received within the state borders whenever possible. The DCTC teachers must attend professional development once every 4 years. These teachers have permission from DCTC to attend this conference in Baltimore and have agreed to fund 100% of the cost. There is no cost to the district. Within the consortium, there are 3 others attending. They are required to submit a summary both to the DCTC and the district regarding the information obtained during this conference. There is no board policy against out-of-state travel. The board does approve any out-of-state field trips, and I am bringing this to your attention in order to be transparent with the community.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Pastor?
I just have one. How many days are they gone? It's 4 days?
It is.
So it's no cost to the district except for substitutes?
Nope, DCTC covers the substitutes as well.
They cover all of that?
They do.
Good deal. Thank you.
I
have a comment. We also had another out-of-state trip come up rather recently. The Director of Food Service was provided with the opportunity by the School Nutrition Association to be part of the Legislative Action Conference. It is in Washington, D.C. He inquired about it. I gave my preliminary approval. Life went on in the district. Realized the other day he never wasn't aware he had to submit a conference request form because in this case there is no cost to the district as well. So we just got the conference request form today, and I asked him when the conference was, and it's March 3rd through the 7th. So
are you looking to kind of piggyback a general approval of out-of-state field trips that don't cost us?
Yes. And I will remind all administrators of the requirement for the conference request form and to present things to the board.
Yeah, it is kind of an open-ended motion that we're presented with.
Yeah,
so.
Yes. Some costs are covered by the School Nutrition Association. Some costs are being covered by the Director of Food Service. He feels that this is a very important opportunity. He was invited to attend this. It's an opportunity to meet with all the representatives from all the congressional districts, which is not, that opportunity is not always afforded at the state level. Also, there is a significant change to food service funding that is being proposed by the federal government, where instead of being reimbursed based on meals served, it would be based on block grant funding, which is a fixed amount. So any change in our student population, it could have a very drastic effect on the district. So they're trying to get this group also to meet with the legislature and talk about the funding and how the severe impact this could have on school districts as well.
And I just want to say, so I'm not missing, it's not part of what we
No,
have here.
it's not. That's something, I just got the form
So,
today.
Okay, so, all right, we would probably need a slight modification to this motion that we have in front of us here if we were going to entertain that, but, that's not going to do a question for.
I just have a comment that I think any professional development is encouraged, for our staff. And if it's not any cost to the district, I still think that we should have a review of it, because usually in the past we would say, come back and tell the board how it was and what benefit that,
And the director was reminded of that, and I will make sure that he comes back and does a report to the board as well. It's an excellent idea.
I think this is another one that kind of falls into that gray area where it's a best practice to ask us, but not necessarily a requirement. So that's maybe something we want to look at when we're looking
Right.
together. Mr. Cruiser.
I wasn't done yet.
Oh, sorry.
Just one other thing with this particular professional development request. I think it was excellent, the trip, because it included cybersecurity, cyberbullying, and best practices for online learning. So there's a lot of information in here that I think that's what we're talking about, and the topics that we're currently looking at in curriculum. So I think it's a great trip.
Thank you. Boris, I appreciate the transparency that you want to have with the district and the viewing audience. I don't know if because it seems like it doesn't need to come to action for transparency. There's no policy that says that we have to approve these things. There's no cost to the district. I would think that it would be something that it would be interesting for us to know, maybe in a superintendent report, and then having them come back and report out and share what they've learned with their development. But I don't know if bringing it to action for transparency's sake is appropriate in terms of maybe just in the superintendent report.
So I would be glad to move it to the report section in the future. I can't even tell you the last person that left the state. Could have been me in the late 1990s when I went to Columbus for a multi-age conference. We just haven't done it. So this was brand new. I received it last week. I'm like, oh, we're putting it on the action, but I would be glad to put it in a report. It makes a lot of sense there. I also want you to know that if somebody asks me to go to Las Vegas next week, there's a difference, right? This is not, I'm going to Disneyland for a week. This is, a national conference.
But again, it's no cost to the district.
Correct.
It's an informational piece that I'm not approving the expense. I'm not approving the flavor of this is different than I'm going to a conference we have to spend $4,000 to send you to. Maybe that's something that should come to the board, but something that wouldn't be out of pocket for the district that you want to give an opportunity to develop. That's for transparency's sake. I don't know if it comes to an action. That's all.
Maybe liability's sake. Just a heads up.
I do feel that because it's teachers out of the classroom and when the timing can be, if this was maybe before finals or something that was happening to prepare students, that could be.
And I think we take teachers out of the classroom all the time for professional development. The only difference is they're going out of state. That's why I think it's a little caution on the superintendent's part, which I appreciate. But I think we can discuss that a little further as a work item when we're looking at what's maybe more appropriate to come, rather than best practices formalizing what we do want to see and what we're comfortable assigning authority to the superintendent on. So I think we need maybe a slight modification to the motion that's here, though, if we were going to include the secondary part of this. So, any further discussion for administration or questions for administration on this before we bring it back up here? None? Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Okay, so would the motion read, approve this in any out-of-state professional development, or?
I think something that that the superintendent would be looking for, and I don't want to speak for the superintendent, would be rather than saying as submitted, would be maybe as discussed would follow, would probably be inappropriate to cover these two items specifically.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the out-of-state professional development as discussed.
Support. I have a motion and support. That was Mr. Green. Supported?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion on the item? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is passed. Any employee representatives who would like to speak tonight? Okay, we have none. Information announcements. Mr. Estheimer grabbed me before I even had a chance to present it, so, Mr. Estheimer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, everybody, for attending tonight. Great presentation from Luke and the club. Appreciate you being here and sticking it out this long. I wanted to start with announcements for shelters. I had a great visit to shelters yesterday, walked the school, got to speak to some staff, parents, and even some members of their PTO. I wanted to observe their drop-off procedures as it relates to some of the things in the news and kind of check out the safety standards at the school and discuss those items with Ms. Gundick. And we did discuss those topics, including many other things. And I left there feeling grateful for her time, and I had no worries about that specific school. They're doing a great job. I do want to discuss some upcoming events at shelters. Tomorrow's their math party. It's at 6 p.m. I'll be attending this as I did last year. Just amazes me to see the children and the families having such a great time at a math party, having fun and learning at the same time. Also on March 6th is the Color Run kickoff assembly. Parents should be on the lookout for information coming home with the kids. March 9th is a half day, and that's record day. And also March is reading month. There's a calendar of fun and Titan Spirit activities that are planned, and they have a theme, reading like a pirate. So there's a lot of activities kind of wrapped around that theme. And that'll also be coming home this week, that calendar of events. At shelters, will once again have their Bingo for Books event at 6:30 p.m. on March 14th. This is another event I look forward to. It's $3 a player. You must be pre-registered to attend, and it's limited seating. This sells out every year, so please look out for forms sent home this week and sign up as soon as you can. And I got a last-minute reminder from Ms. Gundick that with March being Reading Month, it's also the last month to earn Reading Counts points. Students who reach their goals can attend the Reading Counts Assembly or the Reading Counts Party. That's March 28th. At Ford Line Elementary, Ford Line's also having their annual Bingo for Book event, and they do still have spots left as well. Their event is Thursday, March 1st at 6:30 p.m. Also, they have a fundraiser on March 7th, Friends and Family Day at Buffalo Wild Wings. Lunch, dinner, or even a snack, it all counts. You have to show a flyer, which was sent home, or merely mention Ford Line Elementary to get the credit. Buffalo Wild Wings is graciously donating 20% of purchases to Ford Line Elementary. Works on both carry-out or dine-in. They'll have a clown on site making balloon animals, so it'll be a nice family event. As the liaison to the City Council, I was at the most recent council meeting, and I wanted to report on that. Councilman Roush spoke of an event coming up this Sunday, March 4th. It's the Red Carpet Gala. It's an annual event. It's at the Southgate MGR to benefit the Southgate community players. My wife Nicole and I will be attending for the first time this year and are looking forward to it. Doors open at 7 p.m. This year's celebration will include, as in years past, food sampling stations from many area restaurants, raffles, silent auctions, goodie bags, and of course popcorn to have while you watch the Oscars on the big screen. It's important to get your tickets early if you can. They're available by calling 734-282-4727. Again, 734-282-4727. They're $35 in advance or $40 at the door. Due to recent renovations and the new reclining seating at MJR, the capacity was cut in half from years past. So there was only 200 seats. Many of those are already sold out. So please call as soon as you can. And also this year it is a 21 and older event. Just a reminder to dress to impress. I see Councilman Roush is in the audience tonight. Do you wish to add anything to that, sir?
Go to the website too. scponstage.com.
And you can also go to the website spconstage.com.
SCP.
scponstage.com. Right? Southgate Community Players, scponstage.com. Thank you so much. Also, the next council meeting is Wednesday, March 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Estheimer. Dr. Pomponio.
Mr. Estheimer, what date was the Oscar party? Was that?
It's this Sunday.
Okay.
I thought you were going to ask what the website was.
Oh, no, I got that down.
scponstage.com.
Okay, I have a few announcements. One is Davidson's holding an ice cream social for their honor roll students on Friday, March 23rd. And any parents, if you want to donate, you can donate some of the chocolate, strawberry caramel sprinkles. It's greatly appreciated. You want to drop it off with your students Wednesday, March 21st, before the 23rd. Okay, and the other one was the half days, March 8th, 9th, and the 20th for the Davidson Middle School. And then also I wanted to mention with the music as literature, I did some research on the courses and coursework with music as a foundation in literary courses related to music. And I found that PBS has an American Roots music program where they provide a teacher's guide for tapping into the roots of American music. There's a lot of great information and links. They also mentioned that the course type is in line with the national curriculum standards as established by the Mid-Continent Research for Education and Learning, and also with the Consortium of National Arts Education Associations. And there's links to teacher guides and resources. So that's a lot of good information that I found when I was doing the research to link the music with the literature. And then the last one, but not least, I wanted to just make a mention to Karen Anderson in her retirement. I just want to say that she's a wonderful person. The time that I've known her, she's extremely friendly and funny, and she's a wonderful person. And so I just wanted to wish her good luck in her retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to report that I had a wonderful meeting with the Asher, Mr. Samborski, last week on Friday, and some great things as the laws continue to change in adult education or we come into line. Mr. Samborski's done wonderful things there, including writing a grant for the next 3 years that will bring, I think combined with the slight increase in 107 money, over $1 million to the adult ed program, if I'm correct with those numbers, for the next 3 years. Is that correct?
Well, I
Ms.
know
McLaughlin?
for 2018-19, it's about $740,000, which is about a $100,000 increase over this year.
So when that money earmarked to the adult ed, there's going to be a new sign outside of Asher, a LED sign, which is going to be wonderful. He's worked very, very hard to stay in line as far as admitting students into our program, our alternative ed program, to use his term, cutting the fat, students that want to be there to meet objective goals to help our report card, instead of just letting anybody in, like at one point was the process, and it was the way it was. But so good things going on in Asher, and commendable to him. Not much to report at Grogan, which is the other school that I represent. I do know that March 10th, before our next board meeting, they have their winter or their carnival, and I usually end up with Jell-O in my face at that day somehow. I got to be a parent for 2 days as the wonderful Watchdog program in the elementary schools on Thursday and Friday. So I wasn't in school myself, but I was in school there and get to see the wonderful things that the Grogan staff continues to do, and I'm sure all the other staff in the other schools, as some of my other board members have mentioned. I'd like to wish all the athletes in their districts and playoffs good luck, the junior ROTC good luck, the theater play, which I plan on attending. Also, I have to say, being in the community, I've been to a number of performances from the Southgate community players with my daughter, and they put on wonderful events. One bit of sad news is the condolences to a former Asher student that I found out a couple weeks ago had taken her own life, which seems to be a theme, unfortunately, around the entire world and the United States lately. I'm not going to divulge her name, but I do know that a former board member had brought that to my attention, and their parents watched the board meetings. From what I understand, they're supportive of Southgate schools, and that's sad. Finally, and I think this is very important, in lieu of what happened last week and everything else, is that at one point, as I was thinking today, everybody up here, we're working hard for you, and we might not always agree. It might look like, that some of these discussions on the surface are hard discussions, but everybody in here, in this room, is doing the best for your community. I can speak personally that, again, at some time this week, I spoke to, or the last 2 weeks since the board meeting, I spoke to every one of these people, minus Dr. Baker Herring, but I've talked to her when she was a principal on certain things, via a small text message about something that was going on or something else within the district. And Teresa with finance has always answered my questions. Jerry has answered my questions that I texted him earlier, and Ms. Pastor, I think, handled the situation and the rumors last week in a very admirable fashion, and I appreciate that. So I appreciate all the hard work that everybody does up on this board. I think the community, the viewing audience needs to know, the teachers, our community stakeholders, that we're doing the best we can, all of us, for you, and we're all in this together. And for those that have health problems, which I know there are people in this room, or family members with health problems, I also send my continued prayers as always. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I have a few.
It's awesome.
Okay, so as our superintendent mentioned, Saturday is the JROTC drill meet at John Glenn. Cadets are to be at the high school at 6 a.m. and the buses will be pulling out at 6:30. On course with that, your parents should have gotten the JROTC dinner at Crystal Gardens invitation, and you need to make sure that those are filled out, including the board, with ticket payment and turned back in. Again, that is the night of the 23rd. On March 6th, there is an awesome opportunity for anyone who is interested, and this may be specific to our women's history courses. It's a free event at Wayne State University, and it is Women in the Workplace. Gloria Steinem will be presenting, and it is open to anyone who wants to attend, including seniors who are interested in attending Wayne State. The only caveat there is the time is, I believe, 11:30. I'm sorry, 10:30 to 12:30 p.m. March 7th. And they would like people to go online to RSVP so that they can make sure that the auditorium is not overcrowded because of the guest speaker. But it is going to move on and talk about women's role in the workplace, our shared perspective, the Me Too and Time's Up movement, and future feminism, followed by a wonderful panel discussion. And aside from that, I do know that the Anderson High School Talent Show is coming up. I keep asking my son the date, but I'm not sure the date.
I didn't hear about it.
So last week auditions were held, and it should be coming up this week, but hopefully we can get that on the superintendent's Facebook page so folks will know the exact date of that. I hope everybody had a wonderful midwinter break. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you very much.
Just very briefly. And it's echoing what has been said already. Congratulating our two retirees, Karen Kowalik, which is effective as of tomorrow, and then and also Karen Anderson, which I know personally, and I know that how much she loves the students and the people that she works for, or works with and works for, but I know she's also very much looking forward to retirement, so I'm wishing her well, so that her and Ron can really enjoy their travels together. And just want to recognize her passion for the district, but congratulate her on her retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Koopser. Okay, no other information or announcements. We'll move on to work items. The first one is Board of Education committees. This was requested by, I believe, Dr. Pomponio and Ms. Mossop, or just Dr. Pomponio? I don't recall who asked for it to be put on work session.
Through discussion, I initially brought back the discussion of, I think it was the committees that we had before to talk about it, but actually I don't have a lot to say on that right now. So.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to discuss Board of Education committees? No? Okay. And so the second item for work items is Lusk Albertson Policy Services.
So if you are familiar at all with our Neola policies, they are approximately that big. So I did meet with Kevin Sutton, who is an attorney with Lusk Albertson, and just discuss the way to streamline the process and sort of, as he calls it, get rid of the fluff in our current policies while meeting the needs of the board, staff, administrators, and students. I did share with you the PowerPoint that he brought with him. Bottom line is the cost to switch would be $5,000. I will tell you that they are referred to them as LA policy. This includes the time needed to compare our current policies to the LA suggested policies. It allows us time to customize and make any local changes. This usually takes about 4 months of meetings that are approximately 2.5 hours or less that are about a month apart. He does create a matrix that says, you know, this is a required policy, this is where it's mentioned, this is where it was in your old board policies, this is where it is in the new. So if this is a desire of the board to pursue this change, we would need to choose a target date and then work backwards. So for example, if the new policies were going to be in place for September 1st, we'd need to start in about April or so, or if January 1st was the start date, we'd need to start in August. The current cost of Neola is a flat $650 a year plus $1,225 for each update. So for example, in 2016-17, we did 2 updates, and therefore we spent a total of $3,100. So I do have to tell you that we did send the updates to Neola in August, and they just arrived last week. Area districts that have worked with Lusk Albertson include Lincoln Park, Wyandotte, Riverview, Romulus, and Woodhaven. So that's just some information so far. Just to give you an approximate size difference, Lincoln Park's policies are 87 pages long. So it's a pretty large difference.
The updates that we did, those were mandated updates. Those were like law-driven updates that they provided to us and said, here, go through and approve these. We had to go through, make any modifications we needed to, but we did get charged for what they're telling us we have to update. We then turn around and get charged by them for it.
That's correct.
How does Lusk Albertson process?
Lusk Albertson's is a flat $1,500 as a renewal per year, and it doesn't matter how many renewals.
So they'll tell us what we need to update, or we can update on our own, whichever it is. It's $1,500 a year,
Correct.
period. Okay. Dr. Pomponio.
I want to say that working with the Wayne County Board members on the executive board there, we've had this discussion for several months when a lot of the districts have been moving towards this Lusk Albertson, and I've heard only positive responses from that. And one of the concerns I have with this district is prior to going to Neola, we had a very small policy book, and then when we went to Neola and we had all the huge books of policies which were law-driven and non-law-driven, they organized the district in ways where we didn't know where we were unorganized in many areas. So I think it helped us, but I think we're well on our way of finding places where we don't have policies or where we need to fix processes and good practices. But I definitely support this because it's smaller and more cost efficient, and from what I gather from other board members, it's everything that they need with the law-driven policies. So I support that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
So if the board is interested in me taking this to action, I would just need to know if you have a time frame in mind, because Kevin generally books up pretty, since he has to set aside the 2.5 hours, and most boards need to do that in the evenings or, near the end of the school day. Then whatever the date is, if I have that, if we're going to take that to an action, then I can get on his calendar for when you'd like to do that.
So these meetings are going to be with the board as a whole. We're going to be meeting.
It'll be with the three members of the policy committee, and we'll bring the recommendations to the board.
Okay.
And again, it's a 4-month minimum process.
So it's probably better for you if we stretch it out a little further, or? I mean, I
So
understand
I think you have to have a target date in mind. If you want them for this school year, for example, September 1st, if you want them for January.
I don't know that I want to put that date on you. I'd rather you tell me what date you want to do it to. That would be my opinion.
I agree.
I'd rather you tell me when you want it, and
Whatever's best for the district.
we work back to that. Yeah, because I don't know what other things I mean.
Okay.
I can tell you April if you want, but that's not going to be fun. So whenever.
Okay.
I would say that we're interested in this as soon as possible, that fits within your schedule.
Okay.
What about the money for it? $5,000, they need it right away? Do we have that in the budget? Is that?
It would be in the 2018-19 school year, and they bill us at the completion. So if we went with a September or a January date, it would be in the 18-19 school year.
Okay. So up front, we might see a little bit more, but up front, we'll see a little bit more, but in the long term, we're probably going to see some significant savings by going.
And I want to say that when we went to Neola, it was around $17,000 in the year that we adopted it.
It was.
So it was a pretty significant
Yeah.
figure when we did it. So
Within 2 years, we'll be making back the difference between what we would be paying.
And I think it's more manageable for someone to sort of keep track of, and I've already looked at some of our 1,000 things that we're not currently doing or that need to be changed, and so, yes.
Okay.
I'll bring it to action the next board meeting for a date.
Very good. Any other questions? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Okay, a motion? Support. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.